marriage.
Kai, remember when you wanted to kill me?
I don't know what you're talking about. I was never racist.
I'm a Christian. I ain't no believer.
Oh, please, leave me alone.
Oh, damn, you're hot.
I have now suddenly become a man.
What?
Beata Maria, you know I'm so much purer than a waifu that is staring me in the face. I am also a virgin.
Why are you singing?
I'm suddenly in love with you.
But I'm 4.
Hellfire!
Oh, okay.
I faked out. Call me out. Who can say that?
You're really creeping me out.
I can show you the world. Shining, shimmering, splendid.
Why am I suddenly falling for a Christian? I'm a nice Jewish girl.
With great power comes great responsibility, Spider-Man.
The dog first saw herself in the eyes of the girl.
I will have you do Pretty Princess dress up. And I will do Pretty Princess dress up too.
A whole new world.
Now, let me be the sole reason for all of your character growth.
Tale as old as time, Christian and the Beast.
I love having Stockholm Syndrome.
We're here to talk about Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, the game about racism against animal people. Wait. No, I'm wrong. We're here to talk about Radiant Dawn, the song from Guilty Gear Strive, a game about racism against animal people. So, we are finally here to talk about Dizzy, and how much I love Dizzy. For this video, it's going to be very special. We're going to talk about Alchemy, and all the stuff that relates to Young. And we're going to connect it to both her song, Radiant Dawn, not Fire Emblem, and we're going to talk about Shelter from the Rain, which now has been confirmed to be the credits theme for all Season 4 characters, but I still think the song is very, very important for Dizzy specifically. So what is the Chemical Wedding? To talk about the Chemical Wedding, we need to talk about what alchemy is in the first place. Way back then, alchemy is a school that was originated from ancient Greek thought and Hermeticism, a philosophy that was very bent on turning darkness into light, and that is a lot of what we're going to get with Dizzy, as well as when we get to Get Over Nightmares. But as it got going, obviously it was the desire to turn lead into gold. But later on, people like Carl Jung, my boy, daddy, thought about how to put it in a more mental way. And this was being used earlier on in alchemy. But Jung took it to another level. Jung basically said, I see alchemy as the perfect way of thinking about how our inner psychic processes work. But before we get to that, the key thing that Jung would get to in his book that we're going to be citing a lot, Mysterium Conjunctus, where he talks about alchemy and how it relates to his school of thought, we need to talk about the Chemical Wedding. That's why we're here. And why are we specifically talking about it in the form of the Chemical Wedding? The Chemical Wedding is by the name of Christian Rosicruciainism, who was a fake person created by another guy that we'll get to in a later video and talk about that person. But the Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosicruciainism is a famous Rosicrucian text. And what is so important about Rosicrucianism is who is partially responsible for Dizzy's creation? Asuka R. Kreutz, who is named after Christian Rosicruciainism. So this right here is a prequel to this analysis that I have been teasing for a few years about the lineage and understanding behind the namesake of Asuka R. Kreutz, Christian Rosicruciainism. So we'll get into a good portion of the knowledge of how the Chemical Wedding specifically factors in to Dizzy and Kai. How it factors into Soul and Jack-O, which is even more powerful. We're going to get to that in the big video. But to give you a little taste of how Rosicrucianism functions in the Guilty Gear universe and why this name wasn't just pulled out of a hat, we're going to talk about the Chymical Wedding. So what is the Chymical Wedding? The Chymical Wedding is a text written by the Rosicrucian school, allegedly about this fictional figure known as Christian Rosenkreutz. Who he was, again, we'll talk about that in the next video. In this text, basically, an adept has a dream. Christian Rosenkreutz has a dream where he is in basically a wedding. But to go a little bit quicker into this, because we can maybe go into the details a little further in the Asuka video, it basically relates to the notion of the merger of feminine and masculine energies. And that is very key in alchemy, and also gets key in Carl Jung's thought. Because Carl Jung has the notion of the anima and the animus. The anima is the feminine side of the male person. It is also generally one's feminine energy, but it's more key one's feminine side. In Taoism, this can be thought of as the yin, the darkness, the feminine darkness inside yourself. The animus is the masculine energy, specifically inside a woman. But in short, the Chymical Wedding is the merger of darkness and light, of feminine and masculine. Now with Dizzy, as you see, what does she have? She has Necro, her inner animus, and Undine, her anima, her masculine feminine side. When he was known just as that man in Guilty Gear XX Accent Core, he calls Dizzy the child of light and darkness. The bigger Chymical Wedding isn't just Kai and Dizzy. It's, well, Soul and, not Jack-O, but Soul and Arya. And that's because that's the key wedding of light and darkness. Just very briefly, you have the Red Dragon, and you have the Scales of Juno, which is the inner water. And what does Dizzy have for her powers? Fire, from Necro, and ice, a form of water magic, as said in the wiki. So she has both fire and water, masculine and feminine powers. But for most of her time, as we said, they were out of balance. Necro was the one that was always attacking, and she never wanted Necro to attack. She had, even though she had both of these energies in view, Necro was ultimately her shadow. Necro was the masculine energy that she had to accept, because he would always attack. Because up until Strive, when she's fighting, she doesn't like fighting. Now this makes sense, because the woman has to accept their inner fire, their inner sun. Because a woman who doesn't have acceptance of their animus has their sun in darkness. This is known as the Sol Niger, the black sun, that later on in the alchemical process gets refined into the fiery sun and the golden sun. Obviously there's the pictures of the lion eating the sun, and that gets you at gold. So when we get to Strive and we see that they're balanced energies, that means that she has balanced her inner fire and water, her light and darkness inside of her, and has fully accepted herself, which the song Radiant Dawn will talk about. Now, let's step back a little bit to talk about who Dizzy is. Dizzy, of course, is the daughter of Soul and Arya, or Justice specifically, when Arya was turned into a gear. Basically, if you don't know, again, if I have to tell you this story a million times, Soul and Arya are both turned into gears by Asuka R. Kreutz, and that's because Arya was sick, and Soul wanted a cure, and Asuka wanted a cure, but only relented very later on to finally turn Arya into the gear Justice. And Soul got turned into a gear as well, and that was the birth of gears. These machines, well, machine-like things, but more bestial-like things that are basically GMOs that were used eventually for war. And that happened in the Crusades, and Justice was defeated and all that. But Dizzy, later on, didn't really care for that. Dizzy was very peaceful. Dizzy was supposed to be the harbinger of this, but grew up as a normal girl, lost her parents, obviously, Soul and Arya weren't there, was taken in by a family, and she and Dizzy met and was friends with this girl in this small village. But eventually, Dizzy grew wings, and they realized that she was a gear because she grew very fast. And they were, of course, scared of gears, so they pushed her away. And a person by the name of Cliff Anderson, who actually was my boy, Testament, took her in. And she would live with Testament in the Grove for many years. In this grove, Dizzy's eventual husband, Kiske, went in, and he was traumatized because, well, he lost his family to gears and wanted nothing more than to kill all gears because he hated them, and that's why he has original grudge against Soul. Well, Kai sees Dizzy and sees that she can speak, and is completely surprised. They have a discussion about the meaning of holding power, then they fight, and Dizzy defeats Kai. I'm going to read a quote. As the adept sinks deeper into sleep, it changes into a river. Diana emerges from the grove and bathes in the miraculous water. A prince, Soul, passing by espies her. They are inflamed for love of one another, and she falls down in a swoon and sinks beneath the surface. The prince refused to rescue her for fear of the perilous water, whereupon the prince plunges in and is dragged down by her to the depths. Immediately their souls appear above the water and explain to the adept that they will not go back into the bodies so polluted, and are glad to quit of them. I think you see what I'm talking about here. Yeah. Kai went into the grove, saw Dizzy, probably was in love with her. Dizzy's water. Dizzy is water based on her hair and her ice water powers. And, well, Kai falling into the water basically plunged himself and accepted his inner anima. And Dizzy, in that chemical wedding, accepted her animus eventually. And they would both take one of each other. Eventually, later on, Dizzy and Kai would get together, and they would birth Sin. And Kai would eventually gain Dragon Install powers, because he got Gear DNA inside of him. And eventually, as we see, after the events of Guilty Gear Strive and Guilty Gear Dual Rulers, Kai is going to vouch for Dizzy to be his wife, and of course, Dizzy would eventually become the Queen of Valetitia. So the two of them impacted each other in different ways. And this is the Chemical Wedding.
There's no greater joy than to be by your side.
What should I wear? Then again, if I know Kai, he'll just say I look good in anything.
Hello, David here. Right before we get to the analysis, I just want to say that what you're about to see is mostly a split of two recordings of my analysis of Radiant Dawn. It's mostly the first time I recorded it, but I recorded a second version with a new piece of information that I found after recording it that I read on a plane ride. However, due to the recording of myself being better in the first one and certain details being missed in the second recording, it's going to be a fusion. Only when a detail from the second recording is needed will it go in. It will primarily be the first time I recorded it. Thank you. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. It's David Lee's Philosophy via Game Philosophy, and this is our second Big Guilty Gear analysis since I became a PhD student. Why is that important? I'm very interested in the philosophy behind video games, though that is not exactly what I'm studying. I'm studying how playfulness connects us to nature, and at the moment, more pushing that towards how humor can help us with thinking about the environment and messaging on the environment and animals. And animality will be a part of this, but if either without that, I'm just a guy that likes to break down Guilty Gear songs, and I'm very philosophical, break down a lot of stuff before, and you've seen that already with this big Alchemy breakdown, and I like to do comedy as well. So Dizzy is my new best girl, and I'm ready now to break her down and fill in any other gaps that I haven't talked about with the big breakdown at the beginning. Alright, without further ado, Radiant Dawn, my second favorite song in this game so far. So, as we talked about in the beginning with the Alchemical Wedding, what we're seeing now is Dizzy is trying to... She's basically come from, as the feminine side, from the part of the river, the water, the unconsciousness, the part of the self that is more animal and more emotional. So like a river, sort of like your brain cells, they go in different directions, and they make new connections by going through all these different places and being lost in the mystery. Jung's idea, so Carl Jung, as we talked about in the beginning, his big idea is understanding when we talk to ourselves and we listen to our archetypes, what is the mystery of life? Looking at the shadows, looking at the darkness, is understanding that mystery of life. And the river and the different colors of the river, that's sort of like the different colors of the sun that bend and go in different hues of alchemy. This is the first miss. The river is a reference to the river that, I think it's Diana, basically. It's either the Grove of, it's the Grove of Venus. So I think we talked about this, maybe in the beginning. Basically, when the adept comes, the allegory for individuation, the adept goes into the Grove of Venus and finds Diana there. The prince bathes with Diana, and that is sort of the wedding of the opposites. So the river is, when one immerses themselves in the river, in water, that is a sign of individuation. That is the darkness, that is the chaos. And therefore, going into the river, when Kai went into the river, Kai found Dizzy, they went into the river together, because Dizzy herself symbolizes, in a sense, water, partially. He individuated and realized that she was not threatening.
In the city lights, in the sea of faces, in the dance of fleeting moments, my world shifts between dawn and dusk.
Some people have said this is not Christian at all. When I hear dawn and dusk, I hear, that sounds just, for this Jewish brain, see, I'm a Jew, I don't know what is actually Christian, even though I study a lot of it. Basically, it sounds kind of Christian to me. But without out of the way, I just love her. I love Aisha coming back strong and singing, as we talked about in my initial reaction to this song. The dawn and dusk. Dawn is the light. The dawn is when the sun is rising above the moon and is interacting with the moon. And the dusk is obviously when the moon is coming back up to the sun. These are two moments. It's not just darkness and light. It is the intermediate points at which people can find the intersections between the masculine and the feminine energies. But it's also just darkness and light as well. So she's the child of light and darkness, as that man or Asuka said. She is the fundamental being that is the chemical wedding, as we said, between Soul and Jacko / Arya / Justice / lots of things. And you can see that again in her design with the white and the black. That's why I'm wearing white and black right now. Dizzy is literally the child of light and darkness. She has Undine and Necro. Undine actually is, in a sense, is her light and Necro is her darkness, but Undine still is actually the moon, and Necro is the black sun. But of course, they both now are black and white, so therefore she has found inner balance and balanced the two sides, and been individuated. But she was between dawn and dusk. She was between darkness and light, because she had these two opposing sides, but until she found Kai. And being fancy as well, because she's got fancied up as well, and we like that. And before my shadow, we'll play this right now.
Boy, my shadow left is in the twilight. I'll go.
The shadow opens in the twilight. Before, this is an interesting lyric, and again, I do want to preface, these lyrics are not official. We did not get the symphony or ups and downs treatment, because Aisha, instead of doing that, did a little video where she talked to Daisuke about the general meaning, which I will put below if you want to see that. And it's just, again, he basically said that it's about her overcoming the darkness in her past, but there's way more to this song than that. But the shadow opens, it's directly her shadow. Before she gets consumed by the shadow, basically, before she only enters the darkness, she'll go towards the light. I'll go towards the light. I'll go towards Kai. And talking about the lyrics about the dance of fleeting moments, that's playfulness. That's being lost in the now, which is very much this song is about being lost in the now, about enjoying the now. And that's very Nietzschean in the sense that it's not about thinking about what is before, what is after. Enjoying now and wanting, as Nietzsche talks about with the eternal recurrence, wanting to live every moment as if you do it again and again and again and again. So if I want to live this moment now, I want to cherish every second and not care about something else, which is very, very important. But again, it's not about really the death of God. So again, it's not a highly Nietzschean song, but if we're talking about Jungian alchemy, talking about Carl Jung, he's very influenced by Nietzsche, but he has a more positive, even though I think Nietzsche's very positive, even more positive turn on Nietzsche. So the city lights, that's her being exposed to the city, where she's a wild creature. So her being lost in the city, having to negotiate what is authentic in herself with what is not authentic. Look at her right now. She's in queen's garbs when she was more scantily clad, more wildly dressed. Well, now she's all dressed up. Now she's a Disney princess. How does she negotiate who is me and who is not me? The sunset, the sky. The sunset, again, is the sunset is around dusk. It's a little earlier than that, but the sunset is when, again, the sun, the light and the darkness are in their almost equilibrium. When in Chinese, I know from my good friend Wesley, who's been on here to talk about Genshin and a few other things, but mostly Genshin. When you meditate, the strongest side of the masculine energy is in the morning, very early. Like I go up at like 5 to 7 to meditate. So that's like the sunrise, and the sunset is, I think it's around the sunset when the feminine energy is the strongest. And Dizzy having both masculine and feminine energies, obviously being the queen of compassion, being generally more presently feminine, though having to negotiate the masculine energies in her, which Kai helps her do. She has to be between those, and has to negotiate those between points. But of course, this is the big line. It was ablaze with gold embers. So gold, the alchemical process is about making gold, and embers, a sign of the sun. And who is really the sun? Kai is the sun, as we talked about, but even more importantly, Soul is the sun. Soul is watching down upon her, saying that he's now accepted that you can be a gear, and that's okay to some extent. So she can accept the gear of the darkness, the instinctuality in her. And also a little bit that Soul is the black sun, was originally more of a black sun, the Soul Niger. But now he's become gold. Soul, through the end of the process, has become Frederick again. So this is sort of, even though Dizzy's not present in Shrive's story, it's a sign of Soul becoming fully realized. The gold embers, that is blatantly alchemical symbolism. The idea of, in the darkness, she was in her darkness, in the moonlight. But then she found the sun, which was originally black, because for the woman, her light is her moon. And she must find the inner animus, the inner masculine side, deal with that, and that's her dealing with Necro. But the fact that there were gold embers, one, that's a sign of Soul. Soul's gold embers was her realizing and having Soul's shadow in the background and helping her throughout the way. But also the idea that eventually she would be better in touch with her masculine side. But again, we'll talk more about that in the big video. This is a prerequisite, as I'm going to say earlier, a prerequisite to the big Asuka discussion, where we're going to talk about Asuka's origins and the Chemical Wedding. But ablaze with gold embers, Dizzy wields embers, she wields fire and ice, fire and water. You got the deal.
Before the darkness, how you took my hand.
It sort of echoes a lyric in Get Over Nightmares, which will be a separate video. but that the battle between sort of the fire and the electricity, even though those are two separate opposites, that's not as much in alchemy, that the battle between those, the fire was there, Kai, who was less now in battle with Soul, took her hand, and the battle between the gear and the not gear, the human and the gear, the divine and the instinctual, is now together. And they now are, I'm sorry I'm being a little iffy, they are now one with each other. And this is the chemical wedding. This is the melding of the opposites. Kai taking Dizzy's hand, so not basically accepting both Dizzy's gearness and eventually Soul's gearness. Gearness is a word. Gear being a gear. And eventually him becoming a gear because of that is highly important at the melding of the two opposites. Again, Salem's carried by when the flowing of time that ever goes over and over, and that's the eternal recurrence. Like Dizzy being there for Kai to get through his issues. Bathed in the sunlight, the radiant dawn, again, the liminal space between light and darkness. But the bathe, it's also, as we're talking about, hopefully, the bath. That Dizzy, in a sense, was the bath for Kai to submerge himself in and lose himself and become a new person. Because she symbolizes water. So being bathed in the sunlight, being bathed in the liminal space between the two opposites, is there to come together. It's hard to explain this stuff a little bit, but this hopefully will all be explained earlier on. But yeah, the radiant dawn, the radiance, all the colors, the gold that has become of this relationship, their beautiful relationship together.
I desire nothing from the flowing sands of time.
Eternal recurrence.
A bolt of lightning shows me where to run.
Pretty evident Kai is showing her the way. I believe this lyric is the moon teaches us stillness. I believe that's what this lyric is. Again, it's not official. CapnBooker has the moon tells us stillness. And if it's someone that tells us there still is, I don't know. If it's the moon teaches us stillness, the moon is the feminine side. The moon teaches us to be compassionate, to be loving, because that's the more feminine side. And that's Dizzy telling Kai, the moon is there to make you feel less aggressive, less desiring for fighting, because Dizzy is all about being a pacifist, being a passive and loving. The home that is their wedding bed between them and her and Kai that makes their union, and they're both chemical wedding that brings them together. Again, I'm not an expert. I've gone different opinions if it's thrash metal, power metal, or whatever it is, but I love it's the bubbly energy that goes so hard, but yet feels slightly girly, slightly upbeat and cheery, even though it's gonna have a dark turn to it soon, eventually. Ahead of figure walk, so the first figure obviously is either Testament or it's Testament and Cliff, the people that raised her. That because Soul was off doing something else. Soul eventually takes father duty for his grandson Sin, but it's also, I think Soul is also referenced because he is the one that paves the path for this all to happen. So he's shining upon them, and then Kai walks in Soul's path to be the son for Dizzy, as Soul was the son for Arya / now Jack O. Like, she was After Nowhere, Dark and Veiled. It's either After Nowhere or Past to Nowhere. She was completely, you could say, in a state of unconsciousness. And Kai was the light, the holy light, that shined upon that to give her meaning.
You are
If it is in fact this lyric, I will surely bloom in the open land. If it's that lyric, then what is being said is there is the idea of the oak in alchemy, the feminine oak that is, but that's an oak, a tree, things on trees can bloom. But I think this is very much the blooming of the golden flower, which is in Chinese alchemy, which I will not talk about in the beginning because the focus is going to be on Western alchemy. But basically, Jung found this text called The Secret of the Golden Flower that helped him synthesize what was both Hermeticism and alchemy with Gnosticism. And in this, there is basically the idea of the meshing of the opposites in one's meditation to make this golden flower. So it's her bloom. I mean, she has also a very big focus on flowers. She's a natural spirit, but it's her negotiating and blooming like the golden flower once all the opposites and the cycles have been done. But a more in-depth discussion of the golden flower will be for another time, as I don't think that's the focus of this song. That is there. Nonetheless, there is also flower imagery in Western alchemy as well. I can't go into too deep into it right now, but know that it is there. So blooming in the open land means that she's found comfort in herself, and she will bloom, and the flower will allow her to do that. And she clearly has flower imagery. Yeah, again, this is a lyric. If it was, I really wish I could wait till these were actually there, but I think, again, we get the general idea will be here.
The sky was a place with golden rose before the darkness took my hand. It was
a warm ray, the warming process of alchemy, that is the warm ray of the sun. It was a warm ray of the sun, soul shining down, and Kai echoing soul in that, with the goldness, and that would bring them together to be one. Words without, it's either, if it's words without words, that means, oh, it's just a wordless process. If it's words without grace, that means, well, that's possibly going towards that there still was something sad about this whole process of her losing what she had, in a sense, by leaving the forest. The words without grace, there was sort of maybe challenging what Kai stands for. What is his grace? What is the path of the holiness? So that little thing was an Off-She reference. That is Dizzy's first theme. She has Off-She, a few versions of Off-She. Then she has One Dawn, which I still would have, this is goated. Like, this is my second favorite theme. Still wish there was some more instrumental stuff going on, some more classical. But either way, it could have had some opera. Whatever. I love what we got. It's adorable. But you have an Off-She reference. That was Dizzy at her first part in her life, which is good and echoes that Kai's theme Royal Spark has Holy Orders. Even actually more around it. Like, it starts with Holy Orders, has another part with Holy Orders. I think maybe Dizzy's more content with her past, and this is all about her again being Kai's sort of struggling to again who he was and negotiate with who he is now. But still, this is that time when she was afraid of herself, because Dizzy no longer is afraid of herself, and Kai helped her do that. So this is, again, maybe the pure unbridled power of when she unleashes her gamma ray, or even her imperial ray. Like, she is in touch and one with Necro Undine. But it's sort of looking at the past when humans and gears were at war. It might be pointing at that as well.
pushing the sun back to the east does not change it.
pushing the sun. So it's either pushing or wishing. Either way, the sun can either be that you can't change Kai, and you can't, or it's either Dizzy realizing she can't change Kai, or she can't change Soul, or telling Kai you can't change Soul. If you push Soul and you make him do something different, Soul is gonna be Soul no matter what. So Kai, you gotta live with what Soul is. So that's, I think, what it's dealing with.
The world behind the eyelids remains miserable.
You gotta remember, Dizzy was sealed for a few was sealed at the end of XX until, actually, I think this will be talked about in the lore breakdown, but she gets properly unsealed in Xrd. I think she gets sealed a few. Either way, she had some roughness. Let's just say, again, life has been pretty miserable. She's had to be sealed a few times. She's been persecuted. She's had to live in the shadow, basically be the wife that no one knows about. Like, Kai has to pretend that he's a celibate virgin. Well, but guys remember that he's single because Dizzy can't be in that until the end of Strive's another story. So I'd say for a while, I think Dizzy's been playing life pretty nicely. But yeah, life has been kind of miserable. And now she can finally, as the Queen of Valistia, be out there with racism being ended, in a sense.
But if the past was necessary to find you, I will accept anything, for there is nothing I want more than now.
Well, exactly. I want to accept the now. I want to accept what is going on right now. I don't care about the past, the present, the future. I just want to enjoy everything. Because I can't neglect any part of myself, and that's what Jung and Nietzsche are about. You can't neglect anything. Jung even more than Nietzsche, because Nietzsche's going to still say no to God. Jung is just say no to, Jung is going to say no to the dogmatic side of God, but accept the loving God, which I think is what's going on with Dizzy here. If there is even a God. Again, there's a robot God here, but there is that, you know, it's pretty Nietzschean God is dead stuff going on here, but what else is basically going on is, yeah, I will accept anything, but now that she has Kai, it doesn't matter, because love is something that can unite all boundaries and do the most wonderful things. I also want to say, I just love that. So we didn't get classical. We got freaking pop. The world. I did want to say this. Pushing the sun back to the east does not change it. The world behind the eyelids remains miserable. But if for the past is necessary to find you, I will accept anything. For there is nothing I want more than now. You're welcome. But basically with that, it's pop, and I think it fits very nicely, just with the vibe and the air that Dizzy's getting, which is being just precious, adorable baby. And now the musical tone is going up. It's going very happy and like celebratory, and we love it. Golden bows is a reference to the rainbow. There was a rainbow when the individuation process happened and unity happened. There was a rainbow. So the golden bow might be a golden rainbow. If it's a golden rainbow, that means that the colors christened into gold, and she truly was individuated. And the whole process of the firing to the albedo to all of that has finished, and she has found her own inner peace.
Before the darkness, now you took my hand. All that changed. Bathed in radiant and the way we sing the past and the present, heading for tomorrow.
Embracing the past and the present, heading for tomorrow. Exactly. You embrace the darkness that was, and you also embrace what is now, even if it might not be the best. Like, Kai still stepped down, and now he's starting things from scratch, like Chip, but I think in a more competent way, because I think Kai wouldn't just go off to a random place in the middle of nowhere and start a kingdom. I think he started somewhere where it could work. Probably cut up a part of Illyria. I don't know. Like a feeling, as I was saying, it's about the roar, it's echoing the lyric and roar of the spark about dyeing the place without color with color. A feeling I could define sort of like the colors of the river, the colors of the different colors of the sun. That the feeling I can finally define and color it the way I want to. Sort of like Colors Flying High in Persona 5 Royal, that opening about coloring it and adding your own specific authentic touch to your life. The heartbeat, yay, our heartbeat playing together because we're both in love, yay. The hearts, again, they're one and they're in a union. My heartbeat plays on, and you are one with me, so therefore my heartbeat plays on. Anything will happen, I don't care. This now gets to basically what Daisuke was saying. Yeah, past was bad, but now we're here. I just think there's a lot more alchemical stuff going on. I love it. We'll be back to talk about Shelter from the Rain, but this was great, and I love this song to death. Peace for a second. Hello, everyone. We are back to discuss the second song that is tangentially related to Dizzy. Why are we bringing it up here instead of its own different video? 2 reasons. 1, the song still relates to Dizzy. It was released as her arcade credits theme. Is there a good chance by the time after this is recorded, Venom also has this as a credits theme? There's a good chance, yes. Do we know it for sure? No. Is there also a good idea that this song actually does relate to Delilah and Baiken? We will talk about that. Yes, we will. But, no one watches my credits video views, so I might as well put it here, and so I don't have to repeat myself for some things, because all 3 songs relate to the same thing. They all are connected. But Rage and I are going to do a thing on Get Over Nightmares, so that'll be a separate video. But without further ado, let's talk about Shelter from the Rain. A song that is absolutely beautiful, and yes, is a blatant Piano Man ripoff, but we love it for that. I will briefly put in here me reacting to this and working out that's Piano Man. Oh my god! Not gonna play. It's a Billy Joel song! It's a Billy Joel song! This is a Billy Joel song! What the? The stray dog was walking. This is Piano Man! Okay, we're back. Yeah, that was my reaction to this song. If you hadn't seen that, see my reaction to this. Yeah, I freaked out. Yeah, it's Piano Man. A girl who lost her way. There is a rainy forest. So, the forest, if we haven't talked about this already in this video, the forest is a symbol where Kai met Dizzy. Kai met Dizzy in the forest. And this is highly important because the forest is a symbol, both the forest and water, which are both represented in this song with the rain, is a symbol of the unconscious. The unconscious, again, where our shadows are, and where the more feminine side of ourselves is, though there can also be the more masculine side of ourselves as well. But the forest is the unknown, it's the unpredictable, and it's nature. So it's sort of accepting the animal in ourselves, the nature part of ourselves, our connection to nature, connection to our instincts, that is very uncertain and untraveled. The rainy forest is the water of the unconscious, that makes life sad, but from the sadness can be find light.
She don't know what they ahead, but she had to go on.
I mean, Dizzy was born into this world. Both Dizzy and Kai both didn't know what to do. The girl is, if it's Dizzy and Kai, Dizzy is the dog, and Kai is the girl. That's why people are saying Delilah and Baiken. It actually does play a little bit of an instrumental. This plays with Baiken's and another story. So yeah, the girl could be Delilah, who is a girl. Of course, what we have here is, either way, any of these characters have very unpredictable lives, and they have to go out in the forest. In a general idea, we have to go through the force of our worlds, and negotiate the chaotic, the unknown with the known. That is what I'm gonna have to say. I completely disavow this man's political views. But Jordan Peterson does actually good discussions of this. I'm sorry to mention this guy. I'm not going to get political with this, but Jordan Peterson, before going crazy, he had a book called, that we've been doing in our book club, Maps of Meaning, where he talks exactly about this, about how people negotiate the known with the unknown, and puts in examples of neuroscience and other stuff. And with that, other people like Jung and Eric Neumann also bring this up, but I just like it. I honestly just recommend looking at Maps of Meaning. I don't want to spend too much time to endorse this guy, but he says some good stuff about the known and the unknown in that.
The stray dog was walking farther ahead than the girl. The stomach was rumbling, so the dog couldn't stand still. Oh, la 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 la, they were worlds apart, but fate must have brought them together.
So, here regarding, here's the thing, the dog and the girl could be both either Kai or Dizzy, and the whole point is that there's parts of each and both. For the Baiken Delilah connection, the dog is Baiken, but Delilah is the girl. Baiken had gone a lot farther in her path in life, and Delilah, though being resistant to the Baiken's advice, was nonetheless interested in her. Regarding the Kai and Dizzy connection, Dizzy in a sense had more wisdom than Kai, but Kai also had more wisdom. That's why, in a sense, they both have a part of each other in themselves already from the beginning, which is very illuminating, actually. But they were worlds apart. Also, in general, are the how we are worlds apart between the animal world, the natural world, and the human world. We really need to look together and come together and accept our inner animal, because that's my biggest passion. One of my biggest passions is accepting that we are animals, and we need to accept that we are animals. And Dizzy's bestial side is a reference to that, and Kai, through over time, accepting and gaining the dragon install, is that sign of accepting his inner beast. And Dizzy also, in a sense, this song relates also just to Dizzy's relationship with Necro, because Necro was doing his own thing, or their own thing, and Dizzy had to accept the inner beast in herself. And this whole thing could just be a relationship between Dizzy and Undine, or her wings in general, her ability to fight and accept that she can fight, and that the power that she must have, which is what happens in Kai and Dizzy's relationship. If you have power, you must use it. In that power, as Nietzsche talks about, the will to power is about the will to make meaning. You, with your power, must carve and create meaning in yourself, and meaning through the world, and exert control in the world. That doesn't mean to dominate the world. It just means to, in a sense, be in harmony with the world, or live with the world. And that is what is happening also, as what's happening in Radiant Dawn and what's happening in Roar of the Spark. See, the shelter from the rain. What is the rain is the sadness, but it's also us being lost in our shadows. Us being lost in the darkness of the forest that is sad, painful, and drowning in the rain in a sense. But shelter from what could be the sadness in the Kai and Dizzy sense. Well, in the Kai and Dizzy sense, it's the shelter from the dark parts of both of them that they could happen. And for Delilah and Baiken, it's the shelter from the sadness they both feel from the grief of their lost family members. Even though Delilah still has a part of Bedman / Romeo there. But is it really Bedman? Is it really Romeo? You never know.
Dog knew this cliff ahead, so she told the girl that.
I think it's important. We hopefully again described what the symbol of the bitch is. Again, the dog is the divine logos of the moon, the wisdom of the female, the wisdom of the moon. It's the wisdom of the animal, in a sense, the divine logos of the feminine. And with that, that's why it's important the dog is female in the song, because it is the feminine, it is the queen, it is Dizzy, who is the divine, caring, and loving, but also instinctual part of ourselves, that knows love, knows and wants to protect, and knows intuitively the way, and that's why the dog knows the cliff ahead, and is trying to tell us. And you know what the cliff could be? A cliff could be climate change. Humanity, we're going off the cliff right now with what we're doing to the environment. And the dog is telling us, our shadows, our unconscious is telling us, our animal side is telling us to go away from the cliff, but we fall off the cliff because we're stupid, because we're not in touch with our animal self.
The girl said, why don't you stop? That dog didn't like that word.
Wait, let's actually look at that again. Yeah, why don't you... well, so here's the thing. The girl said, why didn't you stop? So, why you stop? The dog didn't like... Well, because stop, the dog constantly rushes towards life. The animal part of ourselves looks at life and wants to go towards it, wants to be with the world. The human side, the more rational side, is scared. So it's the irrationality of rationality, because we're scared of the unknown and where to go into the unknown. And for the sense of Kai was scared of the possibility of the gears living and being possibly okay. But when he met Dizzy, the unknown, and found the divine feminine, and he would become one, they would have their chemical wedding. He would realize that it's okay to be more laid back and chill and not be so all tied up and upright. So Dizzy wants to bask in nature's glory, while Kai was maybe, I don't know if he didn't like nature. I don't think that's the point. I think he just was after the gears, but I think that's highly important to understand that we shouldn't just stop. We should keep on going. We should constantly rush towards life and enjoy and bask in life every second. And that's what Radiant Dawn is about as well. Again, enjoying the moment.
Stop. That dog didn't like that word. Oh, la 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 la, they were worlds apart.
I mean, again, Baiken and Delilah, obviously Kai and Delilah, Kai and Dizzy were... Who's Delilah? Kai and Dizzy were worlds apart at the time, and Baiken and Delilah were also... Not Delilah were worlds apart in a sense that Baiken was from Japan, and didn't understand, and they couldn't communicate in a sense. They couldn't communicate when Baiken was trying to get sorry, you see when Baiken was trying to get Delilah out of her rut and to stop killing a bunch of people.
They walked down the same street without conversation.
Yeah, this applies because I think there's a scene where Baiken and Delilah are just looking and they're trying to talk, but they don't really talk, and that's not as true for Kai and Dizzy. They talk. For literally, again, we talked about in the beginning, Kai's immediately talking to Dizzy. Like, Kai's, for a second, he's like, oh, you could speak? Okay, you can understand me. Good. You're one of the good ones.
Was starving, she could eat the girl. The dog didn't want that.
See, this part, this also makes sense with Baiken and Delilah, in the sense that Baiken could have just let Delilah, honestly, self-combust, and leave, or also Baiken's desire to say, okay, let's go kill that man, or let's kill Happy Chaos. But this is where also, again, the Necro connection makes sense. I mean, because Dizzy's not here to kill Kai. This actually makes sense again with the Necro. Just Necro eating up Dizzy. The instinctual part of Dizzy eating herself up. Which is interesting. But, again, they didn't want to do that. And Dizzy doesn't want to kill Kai. And Baiken didn't want to kill Delilah. Though obviously doesn't want Delilah to self-combust.
Cause the dog knew it, her time was drawing near. She could live on anything she eat anyway.
Because Dizzy can live on bask in life no matter what, while the animal part lives on no matter what. But the human, disconnected from the animal, needs to learn, and that's sort of in some of what I've been learning from about Native American wisdom. Humans go into the world in a sense. We need animals to be our guides, to teach us how to live. And in these different narratives, like the narrative of the Sky Woman falling, animals taught us everything, and this is the dog teaching us how to live. It's not a dog, it's wild animals, but for Native Americans and other indigenous tribes, the dogs and wolves and dogs are not as separated from wild animals. But in a sense, animals need to be our teachers, and that's what's happening in this song. And that allows us for the Chymical Wedding, again, with the bitch of the moon, helping us understand ourselves and be that sort of dark logos, that dark wisdom.
Still she couldn't just stop walking, even if we just fall off the cliff. She just could not stop.
I love
the girl by the dog, just looking for a warmth, even if it does fall off a cliff.
I just love his singing here. The girl follow dogs, just looking for a warmth, even if it does fall off the cliff. I was just working on a cover working on with a friend. Something else. I'm always in the singing mood. But not always, but many times I'm in the singing mood because I am a singer. But I like to sing. Nonetheless, this is interesting because then it's sort of like the reverse. Now the girl learns to rush to life and now is following the dog. But even if it falls off the cliff, this has multiple meanings in the sense the girl follows the dog off the cliff and understands is sort of now, because of rushing towards life, leads to her downfall, because she's now fully accepted the animal, and that's why she needs balance between the human and the animal, the rational and the instinctual. Or in the sense that the falling off the cliff actually isn't the problem, that we were, in a sense, the falling off the cliff is not actually the downfall, it's actually just the unknown. It's the place where we don't know how to go. And now we understand to look for to go with the dog is to go into a whole new world where we can be enlightened by this wild wisdom, well, this animal instinctual wisdom, emotional wisdom, the divine feminine, the dark logos, the wisdom of the moon.
Oh, la 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 la, they were worlds apart. Oh, la 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 la, they were so.
Okay, now they've sort of come together, and now it's like the Baiken and Delilah coming together, Dizzy taming Necro in a sense, or Kai and Dizzy coming together and falling in love and having that chemical wedding happen. I love this singing. It was what the girl needed the dog's wisdom. The dog's Kai needed the wisdom of the girl of the dog of Gizzy to understand herself, to understand himself or herself. Which Kai with your cross dress, no. And Delilah needed Baiken to show her the way. And Baiken needed Delilah to sort of. This is the big lyric right after this that actually goes back to the Baiken Delilah thing. In the girl's eyes, she don't have to rain on the girl. Don't worry. So for the first time, the dog knew. So Baiken was able to fully find herself, and because Anji says about the okay again how much I actually talk bringing the whole bag down is, but Anji in the story says you need to find the mirror, and Delilah is the mirror for Baiken to find herself, and as we talked about in the Anji video, the mirror to get out of the cave, to get back into the world and individuate in a sense. So Baiken needed a reflection of herself, and Delilah was the first person to truly be that reflection of herself, as vengeful and hateful of the world as Baiken was. But Baiken saves Delilah and tells her that she will be okay now, and takes her as her mother. For Dizzy says I'm gonna make sure that the gears don't attack. I mean, I don't know how much command she has of them, but give Kai eventually a life of happiness by them being together. Aww. And then also that just Dizzy and Necro eventually gets tamed, and Dizzy is fully in sync with Necro with the dark side of herself. And so won't screw up things like Dizzy, like happens in Dizzy's finisher in XR Revelator, where she's afraid of her power, of the inner animal in herself.
The rain
Never stopped, but when they looked up at the sky, they found a break in the clouds. So this is, the break in the clouds, that means that there's a possible light, that's the coming together of darkness and light creates new light. The rain was the darkness, and now without the rain, the break in the clouds is the possibility of light. Possibility of an end to the suffering, or at least a possible end to the suffering, because, I mean, Disney's talking about life being kind of miserable, and life is kind of miserable, and especially for Baiken and Delilah, life is constantly endless suffering. But there's a chance that there will be okay. And Dizzy and Necro, I mean, yeah, Dizzy gets happy, and that break in the clouds is, again, Necro being... Undine's chill. Again, Undine's chill this whole night. Undine's the chill side. We don't need to talk about Undine. But Necro, the more instinctual side that wants to fight constantly, Dizzy can negotiate with Necro and understand her power. The power that Necro has. like that raw untamed power. And that's why, I mean, Dizzy's using more Undine than Necro in her fighting style in Strive, because she's got Necro under control. So that's basically what I had to say about Dizzy. We have a Discord server if you want to join us. We also have a Patreon now where I have work in progress content. And if I ever am waiting on a thumbnail, since I have a thumbnail artist, Divine Heroine's wonderful. If I ever feel like I want to put out a video before the thumbnail's made, I'll put it on Patreon. I haven't done that yet, but I might do it eventually. Well, this was definitely a joyous video. I wanted to get this out for Christmas. I'm recording this part before Christmas / Hanukkah. I'm Jewish, again. So I made a Jew joke at the beginning. Well, I made a Jewish girl joke because I feel like I have the right to make that joke, but anyone does too, but either way. This is sadly not the Christmas project that will happen. It will definitely happen in January. I'll try my best to get it out. Hopefully you have seen this. Hopefully this will be out when you see this in January. But this has been wonderful, and I'm looking forward to Venom, and also, again, the eventual Asuka video that I've been teasing for a year, more than a year, I feel like. Yeah, way more than a year. That this has been a follow-up to, where we talk more about the Chymical Wedding, Asuka's inspiration for Rosicrucianism, and how that relates to information theory, the thing that I really, really don't like. Alright, this has been Aliens Flash Movie and Philosophy. Hope you had a happy holidays. And, everyone worship Dizzy, the best girl. Elfelt's good too. We like the Elfelt too. Especially Exard sign Elfelt, but Elfelt's always good. But, yeah, Dizzy's adorable. Alright, peace. Love you all.